A few weeks ago, I took Malachi out on his first red trail on his mountain bike. He'd done the green trail and went straight onto the blue, and now he was ready to give the red a try. Now, before you think you've logged onto the wrong YouTube channel, this is still FBC Live. You haven't accidentally switched to a review of the Swinley Forest bike trails. This is week 3 of our series called The Adventure. If you've missed week 1 or 2, please do make sure you go back and watch them. You can find them on our YouTube channel or at fbcnext.com. Just click latest messages or catch up. You can also download some discussion questions for each message to go a little bit deeper. We've been exploring the journey Jesus calls us on as he invites us to follow him through the lens of an adventure. Like anything in life, following Jesus is something we grow into. We don't run before we walk. I've used the bike or ski trail example in the previous message to compare it to the different stages or levels, if that's a helpful term for you, that we go through as we seek to follow Jesus on this adventure. Trails are color-coded. Green is for complete beginners, blue is for novices, for people just starting out, red for intermediates, and black are for advanced. There are similar stages for faith. Exploring faith is where we're checking it out, trying to figure out if we believe or not. Building faith is where we set out on the adventure. We've chosen to follow Jesus and we're just getting started. Owning faith is where we've been doing it for a while. Our faith is starting to impact our entire lives. It's influencing our decisions and our actions. And thriving is where our faith is the center of our lives. Everything we think, say, and do is impacted and influenced by our faith and our decision to follow Jesus. Right, back to the trails. So Malachi and I set out on the red trail. He'd put in his time on the blue and he was ready for this next challenge, this next stage in his adventure. And everything was going really well. It was more difficult than the blue trail. It was narrower and it was steeper, but Malachi was doing really well. And we came to a bit on the trail where there were these 2 drops. They're little jumps, like riding off a really high curb. Malachi hadn't really done anything like this before. So we stopped, we got off our bikes and we had a look. There were a few other people there doing exactly the same thing. Now, Malachi was really keen to have a go, but he was a bit daunted by it. So he asked me to go first. And if I'm honest, I was a bit scared too. But there were people there and I had to be strong for my boy. So I set off over the first drop, over the second, and then down to the jump at the bottom. I survived and I was in one piece. And now it was Malachi's turn. And he was eyeing it up, he was going through it in his mind. Have you ever noticed how in times like this, which I think is also true in faith situations, half the battle is in our mind? You know, when we're faced with the next level, the next challenge, when we come up against something we haven't done before, we're filled with what ifs. We're filled with the unknown. This is the battle we have to overcome. But at some point, we have to set off in faith that it will be okay. So after a lot of thinking and looking, Malachi sets off and he completely nails it. And then he does what most of us do when we've done something we were scared to do. He wants to do it again. So he cycles back to the top of the hill and sets off again. This time it's easier than before because he's already done it. He completes it again and we carry on up the trail, heading up this hill. But as we go, I notice that there's something wrong with Malachi's back wheel. He's got a puncture. So we get off our bikes and we push them up the trail to the next clearing. I go to grab my bike pump and realised that I'd left it in the car. And even if I did have it, it wouldn't have been much help because Malachi completely blew out his inner tube. We were quite a distance from the car park, and so we did the only thing we could do. We started the long trek home, pushing our bikes. But something has changed through that experience. Firstly, Malachi's confidence grew because he stepped up to the next level. And secondly, I've changed the things I have with me when I set out on the trails. Now I ensure I always have 3 things: a first aid kit, a bike tool, and a spare inner tube and pump. I didn't need these things when we're on the green trails. I didn't need them when we cycled around the streets, but I do need them when we're out on the trails. What about you? What are the tools, what are the pieces of equipment you take with you as you set out on the trails of your faith? What are the tools you need with you on this adventure? Well, I've got 3 vital tools for you, which I want to share with you in just a moment. But before we do, let's take a look at an example from Scripture when Jesus' first followers progressed from the blue to the red trails in following him. Now, these events are recorded for us in 3 of the 4 Gospels. They're referred to as Jesus sends out the 12. Take a look at them in Matthew, Mark, or Luke's Gospels. The 12 disciples had been following Jesus for a little while. In the previous chapter in Matthew's Gospel, we read about Jesus inviting Matthew to follow him. The point is that they're new to this. At this stage, they don't really know who Jesus is. This is before the point where Peter declares that Jesus is the Messiah. We looked at that in part 2 of this series. Jesus gathers the disciples together and sends them out into the local area. Matthew records Jesus' instructions for us. As you go, Jesus says, proclaim this message. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. So that's your task for this week. I want you to go out into your community and proclaim the message that the kingdom of heaven is near. And as well as that, I want you to heal the sick and raise the dead. Now, we'll leave dealing with leprosy and demons to next week. How do you feel about that? I'm pretty sure most of us would be a bit daunted by this, to say the least. What stage of faith do you think you need to be at to do stuff like this? Exploring, building, owning, or thriving? My instinct is to say that this is only for the elite, the people who have it all sorted, the spiritual ninjas. This is for people on the black runs of faith, for those of us who are thriving in our faith. But where are the 12 disciples at as Jesus sends them out? They don't even know that Jesus is the Messiah yet. They're exploring or building their faith at best. They're on the green and the blue runs. The amazing thing is they go out and they do it. They proclaim this message, they heal people, and they see God at work in an amazing way. And a bit later on, Jesus sends out the 22. And I'm pretty sure the 12 took some other people with them on their adventure. They passed on their experience to others and continue to see God at work in them and through them. What do you think this experience did for their faith? Well, it exploded it. Their faith grew as a result. They quickly got off the blue runs of faith and progressed to the reds and the blacks. Now, we can learn from this if we want to keep growing in our faith. I promised you 3 things that will help you grow your faith. Now, let me share them with you, but let me promise you something else. If you intentionally engage with these things, then I can guarantee that your faith will grow. If you lean into these things, I promise you that your faith will step up to the next level. Now, the reason I can make such a bold claim is because it doesn't come from me. These are the principles we see in the way Jesus discipled his disciples. We also see this at work throughout the church. So what are they? What are the 3 tools we need for the job of faith? Private disciplines, community, and serving. As you set out on the adventure of faith, these 3 things are vital to help you keep going and to keep growing. Let me quickly explain what they are. Private disciplines are all about engaging in the daily routine of faith for yourself. Reading the Bible for yourself, praying by yourself, giving, fasting, and worshiping. It's about leaning into God, spending time with him each day, rejoicing in his goodness and seeing him in the world and the people around you. Now, let me be really clear. Your faith will stall if you don't feed it. Now, of course, it's good to listen to others. It's good to consume content to increase your knowledge. But that isn't the same as feeding yourself. Listening to talks and reading books are a really good thing to do. And of course, they feed our faith. But they can't replace the discipline of going to God for ourselves. Sitting in his presence, reading through his word and seeking him for what it means to us today. And besides, why would you want to delegate that to someone else? Why would you want to give up the chance for you to go to God by yourself? Why would you want to settle for second-hand information when God wants to speak directly into your soul? Private disciplines grow our faith. I know countless stories of people who have come to faith and grown in faith just by doing this. But I don't want to stop there. Let's explore the other 2 things we need on this adventure. The second is community. Now, we talk about this a lot at FBC. I've said so many times that you can't grow spiritually unless you're connected relationally. Now, a major reason the disciples grew in their faith was because of the community they existed in. That's why Jesus instigated the church. He didn't create us to be a school, but a family. A group of people who journey together, who support and encourage, who challenge each other. The church is the collective noun given to the followers of Jesus who set out on this adventure together. Most, if not all of us, learn better in the context of community. Now, part of my master's degree was distance learning and part was residential. Which part do you think I found easier? It's no surprise that most of our kids have struggled with homeschooling during this season and that they're excited to be back in school. Even the most introverted of us need people around us to help us grow. We shouldn't be surprised by that because God exists in perpetual community. The Trinity is the perfect example of this in action. If you want to grow in your faith, if you want to step up to the next level, then lean into community. Join an FBC Connect group. Just go to fbcnext.com/groups. Why not do that now? Hit the pause button and register for a small group if you're not in one already. Community is vital at the best of times. How much more important is it when you go through a crisis? I'm so thankful for the community I have around me. I'm so thankful for my small group, who I felt have carried me at times over the last few months. We need connection. That's one aspect of life that this pandemic has really hit. And it seems that that sense of connection is only going to be more difficult in the months ahead. It's going to be a while before we can gather en masse again on Sunday mornings. But we can connect easier in small groups. It's not accidental or a coincidence that Jesus called 12 people to follow him as he set up this adventure. They weren't students, they were a family. They were a support group. They were there to encourage one another. Now, the third tool is service. When we put our faith on the line, our faith grows. That's exactly what we see at work in this passage as Jesus sends out the 12. Serving puts us in a position where we need to depend on God. It puts us in a place where we can see God at work in us and through us. Stepping out of our comfort zone pushes us closer to God like nothing else. Serving is a keystone habit. It's something that carries over into the other aspects of our life. If we want to get fit, if we want to be healthy, we need to exercise, rest, and eat well. Exercise is the keystone habit. When you exercise, you're more likely to do the other two. You're more likely to sleep better and eat better. You need rest, and you also don't want to undo the hard work you've done by eating rubbish. Serving is also a keystone habit. When you serve, you're more likely to embrace private disciplines and to engage in community. When you step out of your faith in this way, when you step out of your comfort zone, it creates a healthy dependence on God and others. If we truly were to do the things that Jesus instructed the 12 as he sent them out, we would spend more time with God and reach out to others for support. And you know what? Our faith would grow as a result. The more you grow in your faith, the more you need to lean into serving to keep growing your faith. When I was a new Christian, when I was exploring or building my faith, I could listen to a talk and learn something new. I remember the first time I heard about the prophet Elijah. I was inspired by what he did and my faith grew. Now those moments are fewer. I've heard talks on every book in the Bible and I've preached talks on every book in the Bible. I don't grow as much now from sitting and listening as I used to. The same is true for most of us, the further along the journey we go. You don't progress from the red runs of owning your faith to the black runs of thriving in your faith through a classroom experience. You won't get to the next stage by filling your cup. You get there by emptying it. When I invest in others, when I share what I have discovered, pouring out what God has poured into me, into the people around me, well, that's when I grow. And the more I do this, the more I depend on God. The more I empty my cup into others, the more I spend time with God, allowing him to refill my cup. Now, it's not the perfect analogy, but it's one that helps me understand what I need to do at this stage in my journey. If you class yourself as a mature Christian and you want to keep growing in your faith, you need to invest in others. Now, this can be a difficult thing to do at the moment. But again, this is where community helps. If you're in a small group and you step up to facilitate a session or even to lead the whole group, your faith will grow. Put yourself in a situation where you are helping others discover and grow in their faith, and you will grow yourself. I don't set out on a big bike ride with Malachi without a first aid kit, a bike tool, and a puncture repair kit. And I also don't try to go on this adventure that Jesus calls me to without private disciplines, community, and serving. These are the tools, the pieces of equipment that helps us grow as we go. These are the tools we need for this adventure. So if you want to grow, if you want to progress to the next level in your faith, if you want to experience the fullness of the adventure that Jesus is calling you to, embrace these things. Take personal responsibility of your faith. Lean into community and step out in service. Which one do you need to invest more in over the next few weeks? If you're still not sure what this adventure thing is all about, if you're not sure what it looks like, well, come back next week, as that's exactly what we'll be exploring together.